And welcome back, everybody. We are in the thick of things here in our semifinal between PSG and J-Team. The winner going to Worlds and the loser going to be knocked out of this one, not get a chance at the finals or anything else like that. Hey, everybody, I am still Pyrotechnics. He is still Clement, and our sponsors, of course, they haven't changed either. Fancy that. They are CTBC Bank, China Airlines, Chunghwa Telecom, and, of course, Caliber. Thank you for making the PCS possible. Now, Clement, we've got already one game showing that PSG can certainly bounce back. The question is, now can J-Team? Because we were talking off screen, that game was pretty winnable up until that dragon fight, it seemed.
It definitely was. I felt like this game was a lot closer. There was a number of very obvious mistakes coming in from J-Team that just kind of sunk the entire game for them. But they have another chance on the red side again, and what I want to see out of them is actually try to utilize counter picks. Like, you can go for early support in jungle and not have to rush a Rise. I don't think the Rise is going to be as critical as people think it will be. If I'm PSG myself, I wouldn't be rushing for Rise. I actually want the big three that we were talking about: LeBlanc, Syndra, and Zoe. Those are the big three for me that I'm always going to go for. So I'm going to leave the Rise by the wayside. You don't have to pick it in the first rotation.
Yeah, and it's interesting. J-Team, they've actually selected to stay on the same side as well. They do have side selection for this game too, but they were going to stay on the red side. So I am curious what they're actually going to use for that. We have seen a lot of teams in playoffs mostly opt for blue side when they get the opportunity. But, you know, bucking the trend here for J-Team. So they also opted, as you mentioned last game, into pretty much all lanes that were going to get pushed in. And I want to see if they try to save that for a top side push, because we have seen as of yesterday that Hanabi can get exploited. This game completely proving the opposite when he gets the counter matchup and his Gnar is once again godlike. But that aside, I think there's always a possibility there. I'm curious to see which of the lanes J-Team do try to attack, and if they do try to secure themselves one of those strong pickups. We do see the Syndra already off the board, same bans as last time as we get into game 2.
Yeah, I expected Felios to be off the board completely as well, and what I'm really curious to see is if J-Team, if they are going to pick something blind. I actually am considering blind GP early, because I don't think Hanabi actually has in his pool something that can deal effectively with the GP. Usually you're thinking about things like Lucian, you're thinking about things that just a pure tank to scale alongside with him. But Hanabi, I don't really think has like any of those really extreme picks that can punish rest on the pick. So if there is going to be a blind pick, I think that's the one that I would go for. The Gwen was not effective last game, in large part because of the Gnar keeping her down in lane. So I would not recommend it. Things I think you could potentially go for are, you know, Viego is one of them. Hana actually had a pretty good Viego game in the last series. A Rise I don't want to see early, but
they did it again. I was gonna ask you up until this point, is it worth trying to go for the Zoe pick away? But nope, it's the same draft so far from J-Team, and that means it's probably gonna be the same draft from PSG.
Ain't broke, don't fix it. So
yeah,
there's no
it's
real
Groundhog
reason
Day
for
here
PSG
at the PCS semifinals. Yeah, so if I'm remembering correctly, this was a Jhin pickup from Unified, and even though he got first blooded, it worked out pretty well. But Ezreal is another champion that we've seen him have success on, and certainly works a little bit more for the team fighting.
Yeah, this one is a much weaker pick in terms of the laning phase, so you just assume that PSG is going to be full playing for the top side, and this is a good setup for J-Team. Like, if nothing's going to happen in the bot, then you can fully focus on top side, and you also have the counter pick. So I want to see J-Team sort of play in that direction. Don't go for the early Gwen. Maybe the GP if it's offered to you, but not the early Gwen for sure in this spot.
So far, no changes, but plenty of time to see if the bans will adapt a little bit. It was a lot of targeting up there. We saw Camille removed, the Jace removed. I believe it was J-Team that actually did get rid of the Jace. A little bit of time on the clock. They are deciding.
You have to take away Jace in this comp, I feel, because it's already shaping up to be potentially a double poke comp, and if Jace is there, it's a triple poke. That composition is pretty gnarly to deal with. You also have Xin Zhao disengaged. That's almost too perfect of a comp in the meta, so I think Jace is 100% just a takeaway. If I'm PSG here, my blindside top lane pick is probably going to be a Mundo. There is no sustained damage coming in from JT right now, and there is no percent HP damage. So Mundo on this patch is still perfectly okay. It also has a bit of poke to go with the rest of the comp as well. That is, gives PSG a really good out, and I don't think J-Team is going to waste a ban on Mundo. So that is probably my suggestion for Hanabi.
They ban away the Leona against Kaiwing. An interesting choice there. Leona kind of a perennial pick here in the league, and it just has been so popular across the board. But we did see a couple of overchases maybe, but Kaiwing did set up some really great plays that locked Hana in particular down. So maybe they are just fearing that potential. We'll see if he finds a little bit different in this one. I mean, if he wants to set up some fun poke, I mean, the Bard's always an option. And there is the Gangplank ban from J-Team. So not going for a topside pickup. We'll see if this goes through.
I'm not really the biggest fan of this Leona ban because PSG are showing their hand is that they're playing away from the bottom side, and I think Thresh is actually far more dangerous in this spot than Leona roams. So I think for PSG, like Thresh is probably just it's a very weak lane. Thresh Ezreal, usually Alistar Ezreal, Leona Ezreal is a little bit better, but if Unified's not playing that well today. I think a Thresh roam would be perfectly fine. And PSG still have a whole plethora of just safe blind picks at this point. They're going to go with more Engage instead. Much weaker lane to exploit. This would actually be a good spot for the Gwen to come out, but it's much easier to team fight with an Ornn, I guess.
I was curious about the Forge God making an appearance. It already happened in the PSG playoffs, and we did already see a success on it. And there is to add a little bit more poke to the mix. The Bard could come through. Don't tell me it's going to be a Yuumi. No, yeah, you didn't have me fooled for a second, Kaiwing. It's going to be the Bard after all. And I do like that bottom lane because now it does mean there's going to be a lot of roam shenanigans. And I love to see Kaiwing on this champion.
Yeah, me too. It's just so fun to watch him utilize it. He does a lot of interesting things about it. He can, like, one of his best tricks is, like, defensively just taking away Herald charges. And he can also just take the Herald, the tower away from the opposing team as well. J-Team, no surprises here. They are going to go for the Gwen top side. And this is why I was a little bit worried about just showing the Ornn early. Ornn does have a pretty weak laning phase, and J-Team is going to have just the topside counter pick, they could potentially roam earlier from the bottom lane as well. So for J-Team, this is still very similar composition, but I think better in terms of the priorities in lane. And for PSG, this is much more of a scaling comp worked into their game one draft. You have the Ornn upgrades, and you also have Ezreal, which I think does a bit better than Jhin in the late game.
Yeah, not to mention they have an extra teleport to play with as well. So I do think that PSG definitely going for a little bit longer. It was a 29-minute game last time around. Don't expect it to end that early this time. But for J-Team, it is nice to see that they've given themselves a good setup for a winning lane, at least in one of them. And they've also managed to, kind of minimize any potential casualties down in any of the others. So I don't think Maple really had like an absolute snowball against the likes of Mission. It's just that Mission wasn't able to really do as much early on that rise. So this time around, despite it looking very similar, J-Team have more options. We'll see if it works out for them. If you're PSG, what is your strategy in the early game, Clement? Are you going to just try and sack this top side, or are you going to try and shut rest down?
I think the side lanes are pretty much unimportant. It's a roaming hit squad coming out from PSG between Bard, Zoe, and Xin Zhao. If one slow lands, that person is dead. The single target burst damage is absolutely disgusting coming out from this comp. And I think they're just going to forego actually getting side lane priority in favor of just pushing out the jungler instead.
All right, PSG got themselves one hell of a poke and catch composition, facing off against the likes of J-Team. Game 2 underway as PSG looking to redeem themselves from yesterday's performance and still get that spot at Worlds. 2 games away from doing it, and J-Team, after getting snowballed, we'll see if they've learned any lessons here as we hit the Rift.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like PSG is listening to our cast. Like, they have given us everything we asked about. They dropped the Jhin, they get more scaling, they actually have the fight that they can team fight with. Maple is on a damage carry. This is one of the most comfortable drafts that I've seen from PSG this entire playoffs. Preserves all of their strengths, covers up their weaknesses very well. Taking a look at the Keystone runes here, pretty much standard across the board here. Nothing particularly special. We are going to get a cleanse in the bottom side once more from the Varus just playing against Ornn. Pretty expected.
Unified should play a little safer this time. He was really pushed up last game. Not to mention Kai Wing is on defensive duties. He's also got heal too. That is worth keeping in mind.
Yeah, it's a full defensive setup coming up from the bottom side here. They're not really trying to get kills. They're just keeping in lane. They'll take whatever farm they're given. And if you're not looking, then Bard has a very easy magical journey. If you look at that terrain piece right behind the Drake, you can use that to get a lot of distance right towards the mid lane. I really like blue side Bards, and this is why you see mostly the Bards just being selected on this side. It's because of that Drake pit where you can get a lot of use and just roam up the mid with, like, even if Woody gets a head start, Bard can still arrive there before him.
Yeah, and Kai Wing's Bard in particular is always just really much a pleasure to see. Like, it is a lot of those little things, but he also just is able to really stack it up. I mean, 100% win rate on this champion, of course, because he's played it in the summer only in the regular split, but at the same time, also really able to kind of get a pretty respectable score for himself. I'm thinking he actually picks up a number of kills on this champion, securing him at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. We have seen him just play Ignite Bard and roam around and pick up kills left and right.
Yeah, maybe not this game because he's running heal, but, you know, he plays Bard with a certain bloodthirstiness, and I respect that.
Yeah. It's a very interesting matchup compared to Game 1. If you look at the side lanes, this time J-Team actually have a definitive advantage. So this is why I think Red Side 131 is a lot more effective than Blue Side 131. We have seen Machi that's been primarily a blue side 131 team, and they were completely dismantled in playoffs. And most of it is just because you get counterpicked. And, you know, on red side, that doesn't really happen as much. You can smoothly scale up most of your carries into the late game. But it does present yourself, expose yourself to more opportunities to getting ganked as well. So I think we're going to see a very different setup in terms of the early game, where River will be trying to help his lanes out just a bit more, as we see him in the inner try already.
Already Hana getting a deep ward down into the PSG jungle, just trying to make sure they can keep track of River. As you mentioned last time around, Xin Zhao maybe doesn't want to be seen as early on. And ooh, Kai Wing
Little V.
And Unified backing in a brush. Got to be a little careful there. You don't want to face check Lil V as he charges up that piercing arrow.
You know,
dangerous game of chicken.
Did not actually show up in vision there against PSG in the inner try. I believe that was kind of like a wall hack to get the ward in. So he kept himself relatively safe, or if he was spotted, I think 100% you just go on him. So Rest knows that the jungle is bot side. He's going to open up on Hanabi, and this time around, Rest is not falling out down 20 CS in the early game. This is going to be a very different accelerated win.
Yeah, and that's something that PSG are going to have to watch for, because last time Rest just never got a chance to get rolling. He was very much a non-factor, and you know, they didn't really use their tools to get him into the backline. That Realm Warp certainly this time could be a bit of a game changer. Rest is going to be able to force Hanabi back on this one, deny him some minions. I wonder if River takes a trip up top, though, in a little bit. You got to be careful not to step too far forward. Rest does have flash this game, unlike last time around.
He does also have a ward here as well, so I don't really expect him to die here. And I think Hanabi also pinged out where the ward positioning was. Ooh, might just be going down.
Hanabi. Very, very low, forced to flash away and Rest. Well, he is certainly thinking about the dive possibility. Instead, he's just going to cut the wave down to size. Hanabi will be backing away, and you don't have to get the first blood. All you got to do is deny as much as possible.
Yeah, that's why I sort of favor the Muno pick. Muno still can't trade against the Gwen, but he's a lot safer of a champion, just because of the infected Bonesaw. Doesn't really have to farm up close in range like Hanabi needs to. So yeah, we kind of expected this one to happen, and the question really is how much can Rest get away with it. And I think for this game setup, a huge change is that we're going to see Mission a lot less on side lane, and that duty is going to be handed over to Rest, which I think he does a much better job at just understanding when he can overpush and stay.
We got a lot of people hanging around this mid lane right now. Sleepy Trouble Bubble will land, but Woody is actually going to get the knock-up, and stop River from charging in, as Kaiwing was even sniffing around the side. That could have turned hairy, but J-Team do find a way to disengage.
Yeah, so far I'm feeling really comfortable about J-Team's composition. I think this is a setup where you're almost guaranteed to get into the late game. Now, this, in terms of the team fight, front to back, PSG still have a decided lead, but you can execute the 1-3-1, and I think this game is going to be a test to how J-Team can actually split push, because they're not going to be able to play 5v5, but they will have a lot of side lane pressure, and 1-3-1 is not exactly a J-Team comp that they have ran very well. I think Beyond Gaming and Machi are your 1-3-1 teams in the PCS, but it's kind of nice to see our top teams branching out a little bit more.
Yeah, in some cases you kind of had to. J-Team has certainly gotten the reps so many games in the playoffs already, and there is really no better time to debut a strategy that the other team may not be expecting you to pull out. As it is really all on this one. Mission does get chased a little bit by Maple, and River is able to pick up some honey fruit, recover the mana. River got to be a little bit careful himself, and it's a very, I don't want to say calm start, because there has been a lot of back and forth, but it's not been a deadly start, as that may change in a moment. Rest finding a big old needlework onto Hanabi does force him out of the lane once again, and man, I feel like we just need to pan away from top. It's hard to watch if you like Horn.
Yeah, it's pretty much a one-sided slaughter at this point. I didn't expect the matchup to be this bad, but Hanabi's also not getting much help here. This is a 3v2 in the best case scenario. Hanabi does have that Horn, but he could just be slowed down.
3v3, they're going to try to make it for Call the Forge God, gets the knockup, but first blood already secured. Meanwhile, the Mission finds himself on the wrong side of the 2v2, and they even actually stop up Rest for just a second. Hana taken down, taken low, and dropped it. Now Maple looking for the triple kill, but River will be able to pick it up himself, and that turns out to be a great trade in favor of PSG.
Even though Hanabi goes down, he actually manages to channel Call of the Forge God, gets a ton of knockup. If they managed to kill him before the second charge, I think J-Team actually would have been fine. But let's watch this play again. They're going in now. Rest is already coming in, and this is critical here. He still gets the knockup, slowing down Mission behind the wall, and, you know, like, I think Mission probably shouldn't have flashed at the end right there. He was going to die regardless, but he allows Maple to actually go forward with that and then chase down the rest of his team.
Yeah, Mission tanked way too many tower shots off the back of it. They weren't able to get out cleanly because PSG, you know, this is what they do. They're so great at counter-collapsing and making the best out of what could be a bad situation. It almost looked like the intent was to just use Hanabi as bait all along. Like, when they are on form, they are so on form.
Yeah, to be fair, that was a really close play, and I felt like J-Team, if they just got first blood and traded 1-for-1, it would have been fine. But that was a 3-for-1, and it's just one of those things that it's very counterintuitive. But if you're about to die, don't flash. Just don't flash against Zoe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the jitters. That's the jitters we were talking about, right? Like, it's these little micro mistakes, and a team like PSG can really take advantage of it. River, of course, having picked up the Rift Herald as well, so now that's something that PSG can play with. And you know, the 2 kills on the Zoe, the 1 kill on the Xin Zhao. I mean, you're starting to take the boxes here. It is early on. There is more of a scaling comp in PSG's favor, but that doesn't mean they can't try to snowball it anyways.
I think the most detrimental thing about this was Hanabi was able to pick up a lot of defensive items straight after the play. He gets his Bomby Cinder already complete here. And, you know, Rest is not going to be able to bully out Hanabi as much as he was able to in the previous fights. This is going to be a straight-up 4v4, so I don't think either team is going to be going ham on this play necessarily. They're going to wait until Rest can actually join this fight naturally.
Yeah, just playing the vision game right now. J-Team with the setup, they do have the opportunity to really just start off this dragon. Kaiwing actually has his back interrupted twice now. Woody doing a great job at playing defense and putting up the wall. So this is going to be the dragon pickup for J-Team. That would, well, it's their second dragon of the series, Clement. The first one was pretty much what caused them to lose, but very different game this time around.
Now, it's a really nice change of things here coming from J-Team. I like the way that they just held Rest in vision, not in vision, in that blind brush on the topside river. So they just had to assume that Gwen was coming down the river But actually, Rest was still up there taking EXP from the wave. So pretty clever move by him. And that's always the strongest point about playing offense is, you know, if you're on the defensive end, you have to consider all possibilities. PSG pretty much just give over the objective. Gwen still didn't even really need to rotate for that one. So PSG, I think they're still just waiting to play a 3-man game as we see here for the most part. And they're just going to let their side lanes be.
Yeah. Go ahead and run it, push it into the mid lane, and that seems to have been the strategy. Oh, man, Hana gets the wraparound, kicking onto Maple as Shelly goes to charging, and it is just waiting, buying a little time as Maple's able to flash out with the relief effort. Hana's the one who actually pays the price for it, and man, what a brilliant setup, but an even better save.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful coming in from Hana. He gets the Q1 onto the Herald and then goes for the Warhawk underneath Maple. Maple has to flash out directly. He does get saved out, but that's style points for sure onto Hana. And it's going to make the rest of PSG play a lot more carefully.
If you're Hana, you have to feel so robbed right there. You have like the most beautiful setup to get the insect kick back, and then just Maple, not only does he pop his stopwatch, but then the tower gets interrupted after the Shelly charge from a crucial tempered fate, and then you can't get anything. Then you almost get deleted. Like, you do everything right, and somehow you still lose. Like, feels bad, man.
It definitely does. And Maple also picked up a heal before that, so he was able to regen back his HP pretty quickly after the fight. We're going to watch those members. 2 of them got caught in the Tempered's Fate right after. Maple heals, gets extra movement speed, and just walks out like that. So it was a perfect kick, but RNG was not on the side of Hana.
Maple pulls off a great escape with a little help from his team. The gold game, I should mention, is dead even. Despite the trade we saw topside, it has been pretty much just in a dead heat so far, with advantages in the top and in the mid from farm. But of course, you know, farm advantage not really happening much in the mid lane because of the 2 kill differential, as Maple has managed to pick up his Ludens already as a result. So at the 13-minute mark, you know, we are seeing J-Team doing a much better job as they look to set up a play here. Moving in onto Maple, but there was a counter collapse coming out of nowhere. I don't think they expected River to be there. Meanwhile, Hanabi, the Call of the Forge God, is going to be able to get 2 knocked up, make that 1, but a double kill comes in from Maple. He picks off Hana and picks off Mission, and that was a great turn on the play.
Mission is like my Uber Eats delivery driver. That was that was not a taxi. That was a hearse. So
yeah, it came to you in a bag that was all mushed up, and it was just not looking so great. Yeah, oof. That's all I can say.
I just don't understand that play. I honestly don't. Like, it was so forced and unnecessary. Ornn isn't on the map right here. We're gonna watch this again, just because it seems like a decent... Like, they even see River here, and they still go for the play. What do you think River is gonna do there? Of course he's gonna Crescent Guard you into the tower. I don't know what JT are doing. I honestly don't. Again, they have the side lane scaling. They don't need to force plays. There's no reason for them to be forcing plays. This isn't even in front of a Drake either. Like, I just don't know why they're going for this.
Yeah, oh man, they even bait Woody on the back half and nearly kill Lil V as well. Like, it just feels like PSG are playing with their food, but J-Team are making it too easy for them.
Mission just delivering things to them. Like, I don't understand. Like, that's the criticism I have for J-Team. A lot of times when they go aggressive, it's because they can. It's not, it has nothing to do with any part of the context with the rest of the game. Like, maybe if you're doing that in front of a Drake timer, maybe if you're doing that if Ornn is in lane, it makes some sense. But none of those conditions were met. They just went for it because I guess it looked kind of cool. But that was it.
Until it didn't. And now they're facing down a 5-0 Zoe. I mean, there's 10 stacks on the Darksteel. I think you know how the story ends.
Yeah, it doesn't go well from this point onward. I will say, though, Gwen has been able to solo take a tower without the use of Herald, and Rest is the shining spot on the team. He has not gone with the shenanigans with the rest of the squad.
No, he's not, but I'm wondering if he can put the team in his backpack. Right now, he needs to be able to pick up some kills. They do actually find the Rift Herald pop top, and it's going to be delayed. Shelly gets absolutely nothing. Wow, good denial.
That's kind of
I don't
crazy.
think I've ever seen that interaction before.
Oh, it's very common with Kaiwing's Bard. He does this all the time. You always need to make sure that Bard isn't in the vicinity to make that play, to make sure that you actually get a charge there. And the thing that really hurts J-Team is they actually traded 2 towers for that. Bot lane was wide open, mid lane was taken down, and they only got one lane, one in top, where they would have gotten anyway.
Skywing is just trolling J-Team at this point. Maple's gonna die, but
dead.
like, I mean, you know, they trade the dragon for it. PSG, I don't think they're too worried about that. It is a huge gold bounty.
Yeah.
In all fairness, that is big.
Uh-huh. That was a pretty important catch for them, making sure that he doesn't get to just straight buy Majayas. A lot of times when you have 10 stacks on the Majaya and 10 stacks of Glory on the Dark Seal, you go straight Majayas, and that is a very efficient play. Probably the most gold efficient play you can have just in terms of itemization, because it gives you extra stats once you hit 10. So taking that away is going to deny Maple, or at least dissuade him for going a straight snowball, and it's a huge shutdown gold to boot. So pretty nice fight on the back end for J-Team. Still, though, the Herald play was incredibly detrimental to them. They traded, they got nothing for that Herald play, essentially. They traded 2 towers for nothing. That top lane tower would have gone down with or without the Herald.
Yeah, a little bit rough. J-Team just haven't really been able to find too much here. The gold is still kept relatively even, but keeping in mind, PSG, they're not playing the snowball game anymore, so the gold lead at this point doesn't matter as much. It really is about securing themselves into the later stage of the game, and getting some dragons certainly helps with that. They had River in the midst of that catch pick up the Infernal. In addition to that, we've also got just an incredibly fed Zoe, despite the gold bounty falling off. I mean, it doesn't negate the fact that you have an insane amount of damage. Yes, you do have some of the Glory Seal, Dark Seal stacks taken away, but the way Maple's playing this, I feel like he might be able to get that right back up to speed without too much trouble.
Yeah, he still packs a punch at this point, and if you look at the team from J-Team, they don't really have anyone that can take the damage. The only one that can survive, I think, a full burst coming in here is probably Rest. But he's going to be in the side lane. He's going to be in full vision. So it's really the rest of the team that has to worry about this. So I think J-Team have to play around with this Gwen pressure very well. They have to try to get him over the river. As you can see, Gwen is constantly going over there. And they have to assume that they've drawn maybe multiple members towards the top side before they can venture onto the back.
And Kaiwing just continues to be a thorn in the side of everyone from J-Team, playing on the edge. And it's just such a treat to watch when you see somebody that's just so skilled on a champion like that. Just some of the shenanigans they can pull as Lil V's forced to flash out of the Tempered Fate. Magical Journey set up. No one's going to take that one as J-Team were coming to the rescue. But, I mean, you take those cooldown trades.
Yeah, take them every single day of the week, and that's a great find for them. Again, it's going to make Lil V very susceptible to something like Zoe Poke coming down the line. This Drake fight, I don't think J-Team necessarily want to take this one. I don't think Rise is impactful enough at this point in the game, and I don't think Gwen wants to leave topside. So for J-Team, this is, if you deny from PSG, that's good enough. Like, we're not really trying to factor in an early force with the dragon fight anyway, so just denial I think is J-Team is satisfied.
Just keeping them on the back foot, not letting them get really any sort of advantages, and it does slow down a bit of the game plan, whereas PSG, they're going to be pretty happy going into the later stages of the game. It is a very different pace than we saw last time around with just the classic PSG snowball. They are playing a little bit differently and bringing it out. A lot of ward buys coming in now for PSG as they look to set up. Dragon in a minute and a half.
Yeah, we are getting some good vision from J-Team. Most critically, if you look at the ramps there, they all have vision around these areas. So Zoe's going to be less of a surprise for them. But my question is, how do they actually want to take the fight? I don't think PSG will be caught out by the members here. And if you look at River, he's bought a stopwatch for this fight specifically. So I feel like it's actually very difficult for J-Team to find a winning situation. They're outranged, they're outpoked, they don't really have a 5v5 chance coming into this one. They don't have flash on Lil V either. So to me, this fight is, I think the best thing that J-Team can do for this fight is actually get Baron Vision and maybe try to snowball Gwen a little bit further.
Yeah, you know, Gwen not having a kill in this one has certainly hurt a little bit. Farm advantage has been solid, but you really need to try and get those plays. Now, Rest does find Hanabi over the wall, and Hana is coming in here. I don't know if Hanabi... Well, he should be able to get out with the flash, yeah. As long as he has that one, it is going to be the cooldown spent, though. But meanwhile, Woody, he might run afoul of the rest of PSG. Kaiwing and Unified, they weren't quite ready for him, as he's able to battle dance back, and the Temper Fake gets dodged around this time again. So J-Team, they might just get away with it, but oh, I don't think so. I spoke a little too soon as Hana gets caught up. Kick back,
the Dragon's Rage.
Hanabi going in, does find Mission and tries to get him stopped up and stunned. He's just trying to get to his own party portal, but he can't quite find it as Maple will claim his life once again. And that should open up the Dragon.
Yeah, that was a completely unnecessary play from J-Team. Once more, measured aggression is better than trying to go aggro 100% of the time. It was really perplexing for me to see Woody try that because he knows his Lil V does not have flash. Like, Lil V cannot join that fight whatsoever. and your members are still rotating from the top side. Mission isn't in position. It's just a baffling play from Woody. Like, what are you getting out of just tapping a little bit of damage onto PSG? Nothing. Honestly, just nothing.
Yeah. Really not a lot. Mission getting caught in the crossfire certainly doesn't help. And, you know, this Rise hasn't really been able to do much to save himself. And we have seen just a number of misplays from Mission this time around, and maybe a little bit of betrayal as well. But
I really don't like
starts
this
to question
Rise
this early Rise pick, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're so fixated on this Rise pick, because I think ideally you could pick something like the Lucian that actually has pretty good matchups into some of these mages, or you could potentially snag away the LeBlanc yourself, do something like that instead. But the Rise is very slow, and it just, if you're not going to ban the Zoe, then Maple's always just going to run away with this matchup. He's going to have priority in most of these lanes, so...
Yeah. Oh, at least Rest is having a good time this game, as the Call of Force God does come out. He is going to try and withstand it and just keep on skipping and slashing his way into Hanabi, taking a lot of tower shots, and with the dash, Hanabi does get away. And that's all he really has to do this game. He knew he was playing weak side, and he's playing it to a T.
I will say it's probably getting a little bit too far from this. If you look at most of the damage on PSG, it's all range damage. They essentially don't have a melee carry, and that just means it's going to be incredibly difficult to kill Rest in the later stages of the game. Essentially, when he's in the mist, only Xin Zhao is going to be doing damage to Gwen, and that's not a position you want to be. So I actually think for PSG, they are getting to the point where they likely need to force some early action or try to find a gank onto Rest at the very least to keep him down just a little.
Well, it looks like it was J-Team that were the ones trying to force the early action, though, as they do start muscling up here to the mid lane. River in the brush to get knocked up by Woody, and they don't really want that one as the Tempered Fate does land in onto two. Vision and Hana going to be caught in the crossfire as they flash away. Here goes River into the Crescent Guard, but it does get spent without a whole lot. So a lot of cooldowns already down in this fight, but they want to keep chasing here. Skip and slash, in comes Rest, into the Charm, and the River is caught all the way down to zero, but not quite. Gets away at the last second, burns his flash, and J-Team, they're left licking their wounds as Maple just punishes them from the side, but they are not out of this one just yet. Flashing forward, looking for more, doesn't find it.
Lil V has to burn his flash again, and Maple's still on the hunt.
Oh, he is. Oh, okay. Rest is going to burn his mist. That is going to open up mid-tower here for PSG, so they do force. They can't find the kills, but they still get something for their trouble. It's oh so tense.
I have no idea what J-Team are doing. I honestly don't. This is what I say when J-Team are not a 1-3-1 team composition. When Gwen is beating Hanabi this hard, he is smashing him in the lane. The last thing you want to do is pull Rest into a team fight and stop him from continuing to scale. There was no reason to fight there. Absolutely no reason to fight in the middle there. And look what it gets them. They burn the majority of their summoners. They waste the TP while Ornn Hanabi could just walk into the team fight. And they also give up Baron Vision. So it's just really perplexing for me to watch this and Woody's caught.
Oh dear.
He's fine though.
He's gonna be able to get away, but yeah, there's definitely some head scratchers here, and you know, all the while, PSG just looking to start compounding on the leads that they have. Rest, at the very least, is back to doing what he's going to do best this game and putting a lot of side lane pressure on, but you can't really push Shinabi out while he's under turret, so just going to have to settle for Krugs.
So J-Team, you are not trying to engage in the mid lane. You are only trying to play disengage. You're trying to force the wave and maintain vision. That is all you're doing here, okay? This game is about Gwen and Rest carrying you to the promised land. Do not disrupt him, only when necessary. And look at this play. They know Rest doesn't have a TP, so they're just going to force it. And Rest has to walk there.
It's painful. I don't know if he's going to be able to get in there in time. They would maybe try to snipe it down. Sleepy Trouble Bubble does land, and I think that might just be the end of it unless Hana wants to go for a hero play. They will try to dodge out of Tempered Fate and actually manage to peel PSG off the Baron as Rest finally makes his way to the fight. They don't lose anybody. That's a win.
Now it's a good force, and most critically, PSG don't find an engage here.
Rest, he's playing on the edge, but nicely done. I like how the tables have really turned in this series, Clement. Before today, you know, we were talking off screen about how you were going to be disappointed, Dad, about PSG. Now you're disappointed, Dad, Clement, about J-Team.
Because I think J-Team don't recognize their win condition. It's like, you know, I've used this metaphor before, but if there's two paths and one is well lit, the other one is like there's trash dumps, there's like used syringes on the ground, and J-Team always take the dark alley. They're like, no, we will not take the path of victory. We will take this.
Sometimes bravery is not the best choice. let's just leave it at that. Yeah, PSG managed to get a dragon off the back of the moment of the timing, but, you know, J-Team definitely making the game harder for themselves, I think, for the second time in a row.
This is the crazy thing about this game is that it's J-Team that are the ones doing the engages in mid lane. Woody was the one that is starting all of these fights. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. Like, the team's not in position. Mission has not been able to do anything in these team fights. He's not farmed enough. So it's just really awkward to see J-Team forcing themselves into situations and PSG going, oh, you want to fight here? Sure, let's take this fight. Now this time has changed a little bit because Rest does have the teleport. So I think J-Team can actually join this one quite easily.
Woody is going to go wrap around the side, does get spotted. Baron already down to about half health here, so they've got to make moves if they want to. The rest of J-Team were a little bit slower to react, and it's still aggro. They might want to try for the steal on this one as they left Rest in the bottom. Into the back they go! And it does get secured by Maple at the end, and now Mission going to be caught on the side with the Tempered Fate, immediately prompting PSG to turn right on top of him, and he has absolutely nowhere to go, but right behind Woody, who goes in with the quickness, does manage to get at least one knockup. They try to get a collapse on Hanabi, just way too tanky on the front line, and look at the health bar starting to drop here. Just so much damage out of the Zoe and out of the Ezreal now, too. Defensive needlework, and PSG, they walk away without losing anyone.
Yeah, the most incredible thing is how much Rest is actually doing in these team fights. They cannot target him with his poke while he is in the mist. He can drag his mist around the team fight, and the only one that can deal with it is Xin Zhao. So a lot of this damage is actually just getting wasted on Rest. They're not able to find the back line, and they're able to retreat afterwards. For sure, PSG still get the Baron, but this honestly could have been a lot worse for J-Team coming into this fight.
Really tried to get the smite down. Yeah, Hana could have easily given his life for the effort, but, you know, Rest does a great job just pushing them away. Mission gets caught out here, but critically he survives. Really great defensive play by Woody. Only manages to find one on the quickness, but look at where Hanabi is. He is just absolutely unkillable. And, you know, one thing we haven't even really talked about in this game, Clement, is it is soul point for Ocean Soul. PSG are moving down the front line. It looks like we might have lost Clement for just a second, but either way, I don't know how we're going to have so much more. No worries, Clement. We got you back already, and PSG were able to polish up a tower in the interim. They're going to go for more.
Do manage to get a flash from Lil V once more, but Rest is on the front line doing as much as he can here.
Just trying to deter them, but unfortunately the tower itself can take a lot of damage. Into the front they go, Call of Forge God, and they actually managed to just take one, two, looking for more down as Rest is just holding on to this, and Hana gets the kick back, but Sleepy Trouble Bubble is going to land, and he is going to take a nice old dirt nap here, as Hanabi actually getting the credit on those kills, and once again, PSG opening the floodgates. We thought this was going to be a much longer game, but right now it looks like it might just end here at 31 minutes.
Yeah, it was, it was a game where J-Team honestly just handed themselves up on a silver platter towards PSG. They had no idea about how to play this composition. It was so weird because if you think about all of the aggressive plays, it was J-Team making the moves. They had the 3-man Realm Warp that killed everyone on their own team. They had 2 engages from Woody that resulted in them burning the summoners from almost the entire team and losing members. And PSG didn't have to do anything. Like, this is... I just don't know. This is one of the weirdest games I have ever seen. PSG, they were on the back foot this game. Their side lanes, they were bleeding out summoners without jungle interference. And yet J-Team has forced themselves over and over again into bad plays. This honestly just gave such a migraine watching this game.
Yeah, they know they done goofs there. You can see on the cams at the end, and it's baffling to watch. It really is, and unfortunately, and I can see you had a migraine there, Clement. But you're all pixelated, my dude. It's so confusing because we know J-Team are a squad that are very capable of playing incredibly well, incredibly coordinated, but they just make these unforced errors. And when they don't need to, it's not like it really is a 50-50. It's just not even playing necessarily to the win condition.
Yeah, it's so weird, and this is why I was worried about. J-Team have not mainly been a pushing team. What their bread and butter is more of the late game, front to back team fights. So they do well with things like Aphelios, they do well with things like Ezreal. But when you have Lil V on Varus, which is more of a carry, and in a 1-3-1 setup, honestly not that important of a piece. I think J-Team just kind of lost their way, and you know, this was such a winnable game. It was a winnable draft, but they just didn't execute the way the comp should be played. And I think they have to ask themselves, this is a very difficult question for them, is like, do we continue to go for this draft if we know we can't pilot it? That's always a very difficult question for teams to answer when they hit the postseason.
And I feel like the answer backed against the wall really kind of should be, oh, let's play to the strengths, because it hasn't worked. Not because they can't execute it. It's because they've been unwilling to try to execute it. They've been playing like they want to be like a scrappy skirmish team, even though they've drafted for something different. And like it's just so weird.
Yeah,
I know. I don't get it either, man. You're the analyst, so tell me what's going on. I don't understand.
So what I want to see J-Team do is I think that they are probably going to swap towards blue side in the next game. Red side, they just can't play 1-3-1. They're not a 1-3-1 team. They don't really know the ins and outs of this composition. So I don't want to see them play 1-3-1 again. I think they're going to go blue side, and I think they are going to leave either one of Ziggs and Aphelios open and just ride or die with that pick. I think that's probably the best scenario for them. They've tried this, when hasn't worked. Yeah. It's time to go on to a strategy that you actually know.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, obviously it's a little situational. Do you think the Zoe might be a good priority ban, even though the Syndra's kind of been up there as well? But in particular, this is the second game in a row that we've seen Maple really pop off, and denying him that champion, maybe making him go on to a different one while he's on a roll. Do you think that's worth it?
So I would say that I actually think that Zoe has been fine overall. Like, it hasn't been the difference maker in these two games. To be frank, I actually feel like in game one it was Hanabi and River having a great game, and in game two it had nothing to do with what PSG were doing. Like, PSG actually didn't do anything. They just catched the ball that J-Team were throwing that at them at full speed.
I can't get over that Rise party portal that they see they see the trap. They see the trap coming in and they're like, no, we got this. We're gonna take it. And then all of a sudden they show up and it's like, we've made a terrible mistake. I don't want to be mean, but it's like, guys, you knew this was coming. You could have prevented this outcome.
And the funny thing for me is, like, you need to do in that situation. So if you go to a situation, you watch the Gwen was having solo tower. You actually don't need to do anything aggressive. And what they did was they played super aggressive. Ornn was able to join the fight, and then they all died. So that's just like Gwen carry you to the promised land. I feel like Rest has to be so deflated after that game, because that was a very winnable game just for a 1v9 carry position. There was no melee carries coming in from PSG side, and in late game team fights he would be able, like, there were so many situations where Rest actually just bailed out the entire team from JT because he was like,
credit to Nabi on the other side though. Like, in a losing matchup, like, he managed to stop himself from getting soloed like over and over and over again. And the one time he actually did die, he made sure that they could punish on the PSG side. Like, I think honestly 2 games in, Hanabi looks so much different than he did yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like his laning phase was still a little bit suspect. Like even on the Ornn, I don't think you're supposed to lose that hard. To
Yeah.
Gwen, but
Oh, look at
overall,
the
like
damage dealt.
yeah.
That's trying to carry very, very hard.
Oh my
Just
god.
unfortunately
Honestly,
not
Mission has
enough.
been negative gaming on this rise. He's literally done nothing, and in all of the team fights, he's just been left behind. Like
I don't know why they're prioritizing it so heavily. Like, I would love to see. Obviously, the Cinder being banned away is tough, but like, no, Mission is a very experienced player. You'd think the champion pool stretches a little bit deeper, but at the moment, whether it's comfort or whether they just want to hard commit to the style, it hasn't been working. I don't think we've seen one successful Realm War play this series already.
he's not showing up in team fights. His side lanes in game one, he's been picked off multiple times, and party portal aside, this is just not looking good. So change the priorities. Definitely J Team going on blue side, and congratulations to Maple once again. This time, even better numbers. 100% kill participation. Nothing happens
it was a
without
much low
Maple
killer game. Yeah, I mean, he was the center of attention. He was the center of gravity this game because PSG did exactly what you were saying, Clement, is just tried to play down the middle. As you mentioned, they didn't really have to do all that much to change the tempo because the party kind of got brought to them multiple times, which was very courteous of J Team. I do want to give him credit for that. But really well done. PSG just taking what was handed to them, and they are one game away from qualifying to Worlds, making it back in for a rendezvous once again with the likes of Megabank Beyond Gaming. We'll see if they can pull off the 3-0 right after this break.